Audible is audio entertainment that entertains, educates, and inspires. For you, the listeners of the CreepGeeks Podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook. Enjoy this with your free trial. 30 days of membership free, plus 2 free audiobooks that are yours forever. 1 credit a month after trial, good for any book regardless of price. Exclusive member savings. Get 30% off additional audiobooks. Easy exchanges. Don't love a book? Swap it for free. Anytime, seriously. Again, that's audibletrial.com/cheapgeek for your free audiobook today. So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 5, Episode 221.
In this episode, UFO report release, it's not a tuna, and Bigfoot.
Yeah. So it begins again. Welcome to CreepGeeks Podcast. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And we're a podcast that talks about offbeat news, right?
Okay.
And we basically take a lighthearted approach to the paranormal, cryptid, supernatural, strange, the silly, and trending tech topics circulating the web.
Of course.
Yes. And we also broadcast our paranormal news and weird fun stories from our underground bunker in the mountains of North Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing that because if you're new tuning into the podcast, you may or may not know what we're all about. Now you do. See how that works? So anyway, we got lots to talk about, and what we do is we find stuff to be interesting. We're like, and we talk about it.
Yes.
And, you know, why not? Why not talk about stuff that we find to be interesting? Even if it's not, just pretend that it is, and we'll just kind of move on into it. So with the podcast, we've been doing this for a little while, and we kind of know when things are going to be sort of popular or not popular, and hopefully this will be useful to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if you'd like to reach out to us and talk to us or send us a message, or if there's something you'd like us to talk about or something you want to share, we do have a toll-free number that you can use.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
Yeah. So, here we go. So, let's do it like this. One of the things that we do at the start of our podcast is we have a 14 term of the day.
Okay.
Yeah. And our 14 term of the day this time is what?
Panspermia?
Panspermia. And do you know what that is?
Yes.
What is it?
It's, okay, so it's a belief that life on Earth got started because of something extraterrestrial, right?
No.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
See, this is why I include links and stuff like that in the show notes so that we don't just like off the cuff guess stuff.
Okay.
Now, this Wikipedia link is actually pretty good in the definition for panspermia.
Well, I'm close.
Well, kind of, but this sounds better.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Panspermia is the hypothesis that life exists throughout the universe and is distributed by space dust, meteoroids, asteroids, comets, planetoids, and also by spacecraft carrying unintended contamination by microorganisms.
Okay, so not just Earth. I was still mostly right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. So the idea is, and this kind of goes back to, let's pretend, for example, that there was a planet called Mars, and Mars was doing its own thing when it was basically beat down by meteoroids or asteroids or something like that. And it hit the planet, and it spit a bunch of stuff out, and that stuff eventually made its way to Earth and sort of created us.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's kind of when we talk about panspermia, that's sort of the idea behind it. That's for the most common or most popular sort of view. It's referencing Mars and us. And the idea that we're all Martians is a theory. It's also been the sort of idea behind a couple different movies that are out there. Yeah. I think one of them was actually called Red Planet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, part of the panspermia hypothesis include microscopic life forms that can survive the effects of space.
Yeah.
Such as extremophiles, I guess.
You're an extremophile.
Well, the first thing I thought of when I read that part was those little tardigrades.
Yeah, those little space cow things.
Yeah, but then...
Were they space cow? Yeah.
They're microscopic puddle cows.
Don't they call them like water hogs?
Water bears.
Water bears, that's what it was. Yeah. And I think that they recently done some experiments, and one of them was when they shot them at the same velocity of like a bullet leaving a gun, they didn't survive.
Oh, poor things.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's not cool. But yeah.
Wow.
And so which kind of got to the point where it's like, okay, because they actually put these things on the moon, and the idea is that maybe they would survive on the moon, and they were thinking that since it didn't survive being shot out of a gun, metaphorically, well, chances are it probably didn't survive on the moon.
Yeah. So, water bears was a name, so was moss piglets.
Moss piglets, that's what it was.
I don't like that. I like water bears more.
Come on down to waterbears.com. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, there you go, panspermia, and that kind of ties into this news article, because this particular podcast and this particular episode is primarily about news, and this is like news this time. Sometimes we talk about other stuff, but this time it's just primarily news.
All right.
Yeah. And there's a new study that basically tests the feasibility of life traveling from one planet to the other, kind of like panspermia. Mm-hmm. And so when you have the hunt for extraterrestrial life, it's been kicked into high gear. Primarily because, like with NASA's Perseverance rover roaming the Martian surface of ancient and looking for ancient microbial life, it's like after scouring the red planets, should scientists find evidence of past life on Mars, then there's a chance that you may be related to that long dead bacterial Martian.
Okay.
Yeah. And this came off of inverse.com, and I thought it was kind of a sort of an interesting little article there, and it sort of talks about the probability that hey, stuff can travel from one place to the other, and it brings up the theory of panspermia. It's basically, really what it boils down to. Life may have traveled from one planet to another. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Here's the deal. They can't prove any of it. It's just a theory, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if they have some material harbored in some sort of microscopic form like bacteria, it's very possible that these microscopic life forms could survive $1 to $2 million if they were shielded, like in rocks.
Oh.
And stuff like that. And this kind of makes sense because they're drilling in the Arctic, and I believe it was some Russians that found some bacteria that was like 5 miles down or something like that, and they reanimated it, and they're like, ooh, look, it's alive. And I'm like, none of this I think is a good idea.
Yeah, all those memes last year, like, put that back exactly where you found it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, why would you want to reanimate something that has, and it's like, okay, so, these are movies that we've watched. As a matter of fact, I watched that one last night. It had, Ryan Reynolds was in it, and
it was called
Jake
Life.
Gyllenhaal. What was it called?
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they come back with some Martian bug, like a microscopic bug that they named Calvin.
Oh.
Yeah, and he came back and then took him out on the International Space Station. It's like, no good will come of this.
Yeah. Or John Carpenter's
The Thing. Yeah, kind of, but that was more of an alien crash, but sort of,
yeah.
It's just, I don't think it's a good idea.
No.
I think no matter how cautious we try to be, somebody's going to screw it up, and this is what it is. Now, the funny thing is that if we look at this theory and the idea that probably shouldn't do this, if that's how we all got created, then it'd be like a happy little accident.
Okay.
A billion-years-old accident. We don't really know.
Well, see, and that's the part that I have a little bit of trouble with right now, because it's like modern space exploration. We watch a lot of sci-fi, we watch a lot of TV shows, and they're already set in the future where humans have already somehow acclimated to space enough to live in it for longer periods of time. But what we don't hear about is like the space astronauts who do come back down, like they've suffered bone loss and all this other stuff, and all these like complications with their organs that they have to go through.
I believe they call it atrophy.
Yeah. Or like, I don't remember if it was like the appendix or pancreas or liver, one of those that like speeds up a little bit or slows down or something. But all of these effects on the human body, and it's like, like from an evolutionary level, I don't think we're ready to start colonizing,
Well, we just haven't overcome that issue yet because it's really not an issue.
But panspermia with these microorganisms or extremophiles, I guess, it's more believable. But if we just go start tossing microorganisms at different planets to
Well, I believe that's actually a thing where they were talking about seeding and doing that sort of thing. And there's a couple different theories. One of the theories is that this is a way for space exploration to occur, and that it's possible that maybe millions or billions of years ago, an alien race would have done that, would send their basically DNA, sort of seed the galaxy.
Like
sort of a shotgun effect. They just blast it out there and hope for the best.
Like an Arthur C. Clarke novel.
Yeah, kind of. And I believe there was even a scientist that talked about that. The way we could colonize the universe would be to do exactly that.
Just take like a laser space age.
Not even that. Just shoot a bunch of stuff out into space and just hope it hits and then sort of seeds itself, kind of a thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
They could do that with maybe water vapor and a bunch of those water bears, and who knows, man. But it's at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think it's a good idea.
No.
Not here, anyway. We've got enough stuff going on. Got enough problems.
I was thinking of that. We were watching Rick and Morty last night, and he had all these decoy families.
Yeah, maybe there's we got decoy Earths.
Decoy planets.
Yeah. So speaking of decoy planet, the recent UFO report was finally released.
Oh, yeah.
This is the most recent iteration of this thing. And shockingly enough, and this is a spoiler alert for those of you who may or may not be paying attention to this, nothing really has been said.
Yes, but this news article, because they need attention for the fact that nothing big has been said.
Yes.
They decided
need the clicks.
Yeah, they needed clicks, so they grabbed Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, and they put a picture of him up there. Yeah. So, hey, here's the deal. We've been talking about this for a while, and it's kind of one of those things where I think it was one of our last podcasts, maybe the one before maybe it was the same one. Anyway, If you need money and you're funding stuff, this is probably a good way to do it. Say, hey, these UAPs, we don't know what they are. They could be alien in nature, could be another country's technology. We don't know. And then, hey, we understand that you have the right to know, and you think you should know, and we agree with you. However, due to things like maybe eyewitness accounts and reports and things like that aren't of really good quality. Can't really go off of that. We can't really go off of other countries' technology because they ain't really telling us anything. So pretty much what it boils down to is they say we don't know what they are. Whatever these things are, they could be technology from other countries. They could be extraterrestrial, but they're not saying extraterrestrial. They're just saying unknown. And either way, we're not equipped to handle it. That's kind of what they're saying. And that should scare the crap out of you because this is the government, right? The military and all that stuff. And they're saying, hey, we can't do nothing about it.
Yeah.
But, and the whole thing, I read it was 9 pages long. I actually downloaded it, and I'm like, wow, this is basically much ado about nothing. This is exactly what we thought they were going to say, which was not really a whole lot, other than we don't know what they are. Maybe if we had better reporting measures, we could probably get more information about it. But as of this day, we don't really know. And shockingly enough, I believe that here, it was either yesterday or day before yesterday, maybe even today, I'm not exactly sure. They're trying to come across a sort of official UAP task force. So they can do more investigation and get funding and all that stuff. Like an official task force, not just like one that was been hidden in the dark, but this is official.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of one of those things where, what did you really think was going to happen? Did you really think that the government and the military or whatever was going to turn around and say, yes, there is extraterrestrial life. They've been here forever. There's multiple alien types and races like avian and reptilian and Pleiadian and all that stuff, and they've been around. They've been helping us. What do people think was going to happen? There's a lot of people that thought finally we're going to hear, and they're going to admit, and we're going to get disclosure. And it's like
we're never going to get.
No, I mean maybe I'm more skeptical, and I'm a little bit more glasses half empty kind of guy.
Cynical.
There you go. Cynical.
Yes.
Cynical. I'm very cynical. I'm like, well, no crap. I was going to say shit, but I decided not to. But anyway.
Thanks.
Yeah. So speaking of cynical.
Yeah.
This next, and I'm moving out of this UFO, U.S. intelligence community releases long-awaited UFO report because it's much ado about nothing. They really didn't tell us anything that we already guessed.
Yeah.
So This
is also much ado about something nothing.
Yeah. Lab test of Subway tuna sandwich fails to detect tuna DNA. I'm like, what? I have had many Subway tuna fish sandwiches. If it's not tuna, according to a DNA test, you know what it is?
What?
People. Soylent Green.
Don't say that.
That's what it is. See, I was going to do a meme on that and put that on Facebook. I know I'd be turbo banned, and we've already had all of our accounts blown away last year. I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
But that was my very first thought was Charlton Heston wearing that neckerchief in the hat going, it's people. Soylent Green is people. Here's the deal. They don't even know what this lab test Subway tuna stuff is. It's like a conglomeration of probably mystery fish. Parts and pieces. I don't even know.
Oh, okay.
I don't think really anybody knows, but all I can say is I will be a part of the class action lawsuit that will occur. It's going to be one of those online things that says if you have ever eaten a Subway sandwich.
It already is.
Thinking I'm already late.
So you can still sign up. Basically, you find this.
I will sign up.
I believe the lawsuit's being filed in California and a couple other states. Essentially, if you have eaten one of these subs or a regular Subway customer that has concerns, you can actually join some of these settlements. Now, the weird thing about this article is it is a little misleading, but then it also educates you. The PCR test used to see if Subway's tuna included one of 5 different tuna species was unable to determine no amplifiable tuna DNA present in the sample, so we obtained no amplification products from the DNA.
You know what that means? That means there wasn't enough tuna to call it tuna.
However, it is heavily processed that whatever we could pull out, we could not make an identification. Experts have also told the Times and other people that when tuna is cooked, its DNA becomes denatured, which means the tuna's characteristic properties can become destroyed and make it difficult or impossible to identify.
Okay, that is covering their butts.
I agree, considering this is horrible, but you have people who go missing and they're found 2 years later and they can identify them via DNA.
I'm telling you, Subway's tuna is people.
So, in my opinion, I do think that's a lot of CYA right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because the newspaper said it paid $500 for the lab to conduct a PCR test to determine, if the Subway tuna included one of the 5 species, right? The food PCR test, which is polymerase chain reaction.
Now, Subway.
This is kind of the same test they're doing to see if Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster lives in a certain area, and they're shocked when they don't have any results. So I don't know enough about this kind of thing, but I do know that it's people.
And now Subway...
I'm just joking, so don't come at me, bro.
Subway has gone on the offensive with this, with saying, like, a very bold statement. Unfortunately, various media outlets, basically calling out everybody, have confused the inability of DNA testing to confirm a specific protein with a determination that that protein is not present. And then they ragged on the New York Times, showing that their testing and their processes were unfounded. So,
you know what I think?
What?
I think Subway is full of crap. Because, like, they do things that they can do to save money, right? Their bread has a ton of sugar in it. They don't even consider it bread.
Yeah.
Because bread has a higher tax rate or something that I was reading. They consider it more like a pastry, which has less. Mm-hmm. So if they would do that, put a bunch of sugar and stuff in their bread so that they don't have to pay because they're calling it bread, but it's really secretly like a pastry, what do you think they're going to do to tuna fish?
And then last year they got in trouble because they took away 2 of their most important sandwiches. They tried to pull a Taco Bell almost and just wipe them off the planet.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't afford roast beef and one other meat. Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking?
What?
I'm thinking that people are going to get paid for eating these fake tuna fish sandwiches. I'm like, yes, can I have your faux tuna sandwich, please?
Faux tuna.
It'd be like, tofurkey, faux tuna.
Faux tuna.
Yep. Soylent Green.
Stop.
I really wanted to make that meme so bad, and I'm like, I'm just not feeling risky.
But the lawsuit was filed in California. Now, an alleged amended complaint was filed on June 7th. So if you are very upset with eating these questionable tuna sandwiches, check the link that's in the show notes for our podcast. I'm sure there is a way to get added to this thing.
Okay. Here's the thing, though, before we move on to the next thing. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has a seafood list made up of acceptable market names for seafood that can be sold. Right? 15 species of fish can be labeled tuna.
Oh, wow.
15. They couldn't even find one in the tuna. So they're already at hey guys, well your testing is flawed. Well, you know what? You have 15 opportunities to pass that test.
Which is bad in itself, because isn't tuna a species and then you have like subspecies?
Well, yeah, I mean you have things like, skipjack and yellowfin, which by the way, Subway says the global chain only sells skipjack and yellowfin tuna.
Yeah.
You think that they'd be able to recognize 2 out of the 15, or at least maybe 13 other possibilities of tuna. Subway's I think they're going to have problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they advertise this tuna sandwich as 100% sustainably caught skipjack and or yellowfin tuna. Well, if it's not skipjack or yellowfin like you say it is, and it's not the other 13 varieties that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration says you can call it tuna, well, then what is it?
But see,
I'm going back to what I'm saying before. It's mermaids.
Mermaids.
Yeah.
You just changed your mind. It went from people to mermaids.
Well, mermaids is more likely because on our last podcast we talked about the mermaids documentary, or people like, you know what, they got mermaids.
But this does bring a good point that goes back to Bigfoot. So they tested against 15 different possibilities of tuna. So 15 different species. They had the opportunity to test 15 different times for tuna, umbrella term there.
Okay.
Just like when people try to test for Bigfoot DNA, they don't really have a set standard to test against.
Yeah, but hold on a second.
Yeah.
In this particular instance with Subway,
they do have a set standard.
They do know what to look
I know.
for. Bigfoot, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, but the unreliability, like they were talking here, it was cooked down, it's been processed, it's been canned, it's been salted, all this other stuff.
It's still, okay, let me do this.
Yeah.
I eat tuna fish out of the can. Yes, I'm a savage. Right? And at the end of the day, it's tuna fish. It tastes like tuna fish, smells like tuna fish, looks like tuna fish. It tastes like tuna fish.
Yeah.
Even if it has a percentage of dolphin in it or whatever, it still tastes like tuna fish.
Yeah.
Now, Subway, it tastes like tuna fish too, but what are they adding to make that fish taste like tuna fish?
And also, okay, so I'm a paranoid person. I open that can of tuna fish at home, it looks the same. I open another can, it looks the same. You go to Subway, it's already been prepared. I have no idea what they've put in it.
Yes.
And it's just, it comes in this this thing, this bucket, and they peel the safety
Maybe
stuff.
we should change the title on the podcast to it's soylent. How do you say it? Soylent. Soylent tuna.
Yeah, no, we should not. But I don't know.
Anyway, we need to move on before we get attacked.
Maybe we should test this against Bigfoot samples and see if it's like.
I think that would cost $500.
Yeah, it would.
Maybe even more. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's going to be trouble with that. And I used to eat the Subway tuna fish sub all the time.
I never did.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a healthy thing, and you can't always have a double meat 10-pound sub. And at the end of the day, remember this, everybody listening to the podcast: you're paying $8 for a sandwich.
Yes.
That you could go and spend $15 at somewhere like Walmart and make the same thing. That's really what it boils down to. At the end of the day, we're paying like top dollar for a sandwich. So yeah. So anyway, speaking of weird stuff, Pennsylvania is something we've talked about in the past. And there's people that say like, oh, Pennsylvania is, there's so many UFO sightings and all this weird stuff. And, why Pennsylvania? Trying to hype it up. And I think it's a lot of Pennsylvania people trying to hype up Pennsylvania.
And it's funny.
Hold on.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we live in a weird place too. But hey, we don't have like Florida man stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
This is like Albuquerque woman, Florida man, right? Pennsylvania police enlisted to stop exorcism unfolding at Home Depot. And I'm like, I'm going to click it. Of course I'm going to click it. I'm like, here we go. I got to read this. And of course, this is off Coast to Coast AM because, they caught my attention, right?
Oh, wow.
It says, police officers in a Pennsylvania town responded to a rather unusual call this week when they were enlisted basically to break up an exorcism that was unfolding at a Home Depot.
That sounds like they broke up a fight, but instead exorcism.
So the very bizarre incident occurred Monday afternoon in the community of Dixon City when someone at Home Depot or at the home improvement retailer reported what they described as bad behavior taking place at the store. So when the cops arrived at the scene, they discovered people having an exorcism in the lumber aisle for the dead trees.
What? Okay.
I'm like, all right. So it's like, why exactly participants in the ritual suspected that the wood might be possessed by Senator Spirit sadly goes unanswered, as the only additional details offered by the Dixon City Police Department is that officers escorted the individuals, right, basically outside of the building, and, no charges were filed, really. It's kind of the way it went.
Okay.
They were exercising the trees, man. And there's that's an article written by Tim Banal, and this is from Coast to Coast. And I'm like, what would you do if you were cruising through lumber aisle? And if somebody put a comment somewhere, and I've seen this on another place, it says they're just trying to exercise them high lumber prices. Because if you don't know, lumber went up like 300%. So lumber is like basically building materials, primarily wood type stuff. Like it's going to be a deck or 2x4 or whatever, like build a house. Went up like 300%.
Oh, wow. So the original article that was taken from, which is a local, it's a Pennsylvania news website, they mentioned close to 200 comments at the time were posted in response to the police blotter Facebook post. That those 200 comments alone on that blotter were specifically about this exorcism.
Nice.
And there is no indication the incident had anything to do with the price of lumber.
It did.
And that's on this article. Now, wow, okay. So we're
going to exercise high lumber prices at Home Depot.
The police blotter Facebook post has 369 comments, and over 200 now are all about the exorcism.
Nice.
Yeah.
They're going viral. They're probably very excited by that. So anyway, that was in Pennsylvania. And something else that came out of Pennsylvania that I thought was pretty funny. We talked about this back in April. I think it was our April 12th podcast about suspicious FBI activity in regard to some Civil War gold.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, it was there. These treasure hunters were looking for it, and they thought they had it, and all of a sudden, the next day, come back, it's gone, and the FBI was involved somehow. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, according to this little article thing, and the Pennsylvania police, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find it. I just closed it because I'm kind of dumb. Now I got to go back and click it again. So pretty much what it is there's been a warrant, right, that was unsealed, and the unsealed warrant kind of reveals some of the suspicious activity from the FBI. Because evidently this was supposed to be a lot of Civil War gold.
Yeah.
And the theory is that the FBI knew where it was, somehow or another found out about it, because these treasure hunters were like trying to sue them, say, hey, man, you kind of took the gold we were looking for. And so the FBI searched for a legendary lost cache of Civil War era gold, which is believed to be buried in a Pennsylvania state forest. Wound up gone. But this warrant talks about when federal agents kind of descended upon the site and kind of took over and sort of, were looking for the hoard of gold, allegedly. Mm-hmm. And it's basically a hoard of Civil War Union gold bars. That has allegedly it vanished from a train during the Civil War.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be hidden somewhere in Pennsylvania. And so, in 2018, there was an application for a seizure warrant that was reportedly filed by the FBI prior to the dig. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking that's going to shed new light on the agency's justification for the endeavor, as well as their concerns regarding a veritable turf war with the state of Pennsylvania over the gold. So in the document, an agent for the Bureau's Art Crime Division declared that I have probable cause to believe that a significant cache of gold is secreted away in an underground cave location at Dent's Run. And that's the area in the Pennsylvania State Forest, which is suspected of being the hiding place for the treasure.
Okay.
And the warrant goes on to request to the state that the treasure hunters that Dennis and Pam Parada had consulted on the investigation. And so additionally, the agent states that the FBI had enlisted the help of a private contractor who conducted a scan for the spot where they thought the treasure was and detected a sizable and rather dense mass that seems to correlate with 9 tons of gold. And perhaps the most telling portion of the seizure request is that the FBI was concerned that without the intervention of a federal judge, the state of Pennsylvania might swoop in and take the treasure by claiming it was actually considered abandoned property. Since the dig went ahead as planned, one presumes that the Bureau made a compelling enough case to be allowed to proceed. So, however, a lawyer for the father and son treasure hunting duo that led the FBI to the spot where the gold was thought to be hidden notes that there is no such paperwork filed by the Bureau that definitively states that they never recovered any treasure. So they believe that not only did the long lost hoard wind up being unearthed, and they think the FBI straight up got it.
So an undocumented find.
Yeah, they knew where it was, but see, that's the thing. They didn't say that they didn't get it.
And my big thing is just like...
And that was off coast to coast, also by Tim Binnall.
My big thing, just like when we talked about this in the beginning, because I was very concerned with the jurisdiction on this, the Bureau's Art Crime Division. Now, I could understand, like, significant historic pieces and certain levels of art or craftsmanship in gold. However, 9 tons indicates this is more of a currency thing, something along the line of the Treasury Department, something along the lines of, again, state rights. And...
I mean, 9 tons of gold is, Pennsylvania be like one of the richest states.
I know.
That's a lot. I mean, I don't know what that would actually equate to in today's money, but 9 tons of gold would be a significant windfall for Pennsylvania.
But that explanation right there about the state of Pennsylvania might swoop in and take the treasure claiming abandoned property circumstances, that makes me think in Pennsylvania there must be some very unique abandonment and property laws there.
I mean, not really.
Yeah.
Because if you're treasure hunting in a state forest and you find a significant haul of gold, then you can lay claim to it or part of it, and you're still going to have to give some to the state.
Yeah. In some places make you give all of it, depend.
Yeah, but I mean...
Some states.
Very few. I think that's more of a Europe thing, but yeah. I mean, but either way, FBI aren't saying that they claimed it, and they aren't saying that they didn't claim it.
So that's a little messed up.
Well, those 2 treasure hunter people, they're the ones that brought the light to the whole thing, and they're still doing it. So this thing is getting pretty
intense,
involved. So, I thought since that related to Pennsylvania, we put that in there. And plus, we talked about it in one of our previous podcast episodes, which you can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. So, yeah, if you're looking for that, it's around April 12th. Yeah. So, I seen this, and we had to talk about it. These are 5 very strange things about Bigfoot. And this is off Mysterious Universe, and it's also done by Nick Redfern. I like Nick Redfern. He's a nice guy. Yeah. At least he seems like a nice guy. He may or may not be. Hey, Nick, if you're listening and you're a nice guy, let us know. If you're not, that's cool, too. Seen the parking lot. May actually see him at CryptidCon. I don't know. Remember we seen him one time? Anyway, so.
We saw him at Western Pennsylvania Conference of the Unexplained.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So speaking of, anyway, 5 very strange things about Bigfoot.
Okay.
I've heard of some of these. So here we go. Here's the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And, so like I said, this is Nick Redfern, and this is off Mysterious Universe. Number 1, there's the matter of the language of the creature.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the creepiest part, or one of the creepiest parts about Bigfoot. Right?
Yeah.
Because even in Cherokee lore and some of the stuff that we talk about, and have talked about in the past, and some of the native tribes have always said that at one time you could communicate with Bigfoot, and they use the ancient tongue.
Yeah, the old tongue, the old language.
And over time, that went away, and part of that was that they stopped associating with each other and all this great stuff. But anyway, there's a matter of language of the creatures. A number of recordings have been made of what's purported to be vocalizations of Bigfoot. And while some of those have been explained as known animals, there is one set of recording that more than any sort of stands out to the test of time, and they're known as the Sierra sounds. And those creepy Bigfoot howls that you hear that everybody says, we have no idea what this is, and they're probably the most legitimate Bigfoot sounds that you can hear.
Yeah.
Right. And the story is that the Sierra sounds go back to the 70s, and is focused around two Bigfoot investigators, which is Ron Moorhead and Alan Barry. And from the early, mid-70s, the two men captured astonishing audio recordings of what many believe to be Bigfoots in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. So they demonstrate a form of language. So that's a very strange thing about Bigfoot, which kind of makes sense. And we put them in a higher level of intelligence. Now, everything can sort of communicate with each other, but if they have their own language and they're doing it, and things mean things, like different sounds, vocalizations mean things, that kind of puts them up higher.
Yeah, and it should
than just
be,
a frog, calling out continually until a mate shows up.
And it should be very likely for that to be so, considering like higher primates, gorillas, orangutans are capable of things like sign language, and they have certain standardized calls that are recognized between different groups of gorillas and stuff like that. So it's, And
the website Native Languages notes the Bigfoot figure is common to the folklore of most Northwest Native American tribes. And Native American Bigfoot legends usually describe creatures around 6 to 9 feet tall, very strong, hairy, uncivilized, often foul-smelling, and usually living in the woods and foraging at night. Right? In some Native stories, Bigfoot may have minor supernatural powers, like the ability to turn invisible. That'd be number 2.
Okay.
Now, if you're covered in hair and all that kind of stuff, and you're good at hiding, I can almost see where you think he just turned invisible, but who knows? Yeah. And so there are far more, and this is number 3, there are far more reports on record where witnesses in close proximity to Bigfoot have reported feeling inexplicably terrified, nauseous, confused, disoriented, dizzy, lightheaded, and physically unable to move. And this may not be due to sheer terror, but basically this is where they're talking about infrasound.
Yeah.
So infrasound is an extremely low frequency sound. One is significantly lower than 20 hertz, which is the typical extreme of human hearing.
So is he See, this is the thing I don't get about infrasound. Are they suggesting that Bigfoot is constantly emitting infrasound?
No,
or that he's capable of.
He's allegedly capable of doing this sort of thing to get a desired effect.
Okay.
Now, beings, as I know a little bit about sound, dolphins kind of do the same thing, a little bit like low frequency. You'll see them like in the little, where their noses in the sand, scaring up little shrimps and stuff. And so if the human hearing kicks around 20 hertz and they can go way below that, they can cause physiological effects. And sound can definitely do that.
But would you see Bigfoot like moving his vocal cords? Or
it depends on where it's
mouth?
coming from. Chances are, if he's doing it, it's probably coming from deep within.
Like a chest roar or something?
Yeah, it could be,
rumble?
Sure.
Okay.
Think about the Tibetan monks that are sitting there in the monastery. They're doing a thing, and they just sit there and their mouths aren't really moving. They're just doing it from the diaphragm.
Okay, the low throat diaphragm thing.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good. I don't know.
No, because it's just like, sometimes when people try to describe this infrasound thing, because I've seen quite a few different presentations, explanations, it made me feel like, Bigfoot walks around constantly emitting a pulse or something. So that's...
No, I don't think that would be the case. I think that would require way more energy than this thing could do.
Yeah.
I think it's something they can call upon to use, and if the infrasound and the sound frequency is at the correct place, it can cause disorientation, make you sick, all that crazy stuff.
Okay.
And I think that's where it sort of disrupts what's going on in your thought processes, and it sort of renders you almost.
And see, here's the thing: this infrasound thing, it renders you like paralyzed or kind of just startled, stunned, whatever. But they're also claiming that it will affect your equipment. So
now that part I kind of think, I don't really know. Now everything does emit its own, it emits its own electronic field, and you can disrupt it. I mean, if you look at things like, electromagnetic pulse from, nuclear weapons, things like that sort of disrupt how things work. And we talk about the EMP pulse and all that jazz. If you're not in a Faraday cage, I can see where it may cause some problems. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that the frequency that he could emit is something that causes necessarily those issues. I would attribute that more to being more of a paranormal thing, than an actual naturalistic thing.
Yeah. Because they're saying, I couldn't zoom and get a close-up video because of the infrasound.
I mean, maybe you physically couldn't do it. I don't know. I've never experienced Bigfoot infrasound in a way that would keep me from doing something. The only thing I could even remotely attribute it to is when I heard a baby cry, like right in my head, like right in my ear, and we fled the scene, if you will.
Yeah.
But it didn't keep me from not fleeing the scene. If anything, it set my spider sense off and was like, we got to go right now. But I don't really know.
Yeah.
And they don't really know either. And I did a job in the military where I hunted and tracked submarines with sound, and I know that sound has certain effects on things, but I've never, came across it in a way that would do what they're saying.
Okay.
Do I think that it exists? Absolutely. Infrasound totally does exist, and it can have effects and things like that. I mean, but I don't know if it would actually affect your gear. I think if that sort of technology could be exploited and created by the military or the government in general, it would happen already. We would have seen instances of this, I think. I don't know. Let me see. But one of the strangest claims made by Bigfoot or about Bigfoot is that the creatures have a particular liking for braiding the manes of horses. I've heard this, and we've heard this on Coast to Coast AM back when Art Bell was doing it, and we've heard it where Bigfoot's braid horse manes.
But you know who else braids horse manes?
People.
Little people.
Yeah.
We've gotten stories like this from our friends who live in places like South Dakota, New Mexico, Montana, Wyoming.
Yeah.
A lot of our friends who live on the res or, some of the native and indigenous friends that we have, they've told stories about the little people doing this.
Well, according to Nick, you've got this expert in the field, this lady named Lisa Scheel, and she's the author of Backyard Bigfoot and Forbidden Bigfoot. Right.
All right.
Where those books actually chronicle her very own encounters with Bigfoot since I first encountered the main braiding phenomenon while living in Texas. In the beginning, I allowed myself to dismiss this as natural tangles, perhaps the handiwork of the neighbor's children. But as time went on, however, I found it more and more difficult to stick to my original hypotheses. And indeed, in 2000s, she experienced numerous examples of horse braiding when Bigfoot activity in the vicinity was at its height. Yeah. Sure, I mean, why not?
Sure.
I can see a naturalistic creature wanting to do that sort of thing. And, Bigfoot leaves you little treats like headless mice wrapped in leaves and tied up, I mean, why not, right?
Yeah.
And it would kind of make sense. Maybe you're a lady Bigfoot and you're traveling and you like horses and horses aren't scared of you because whatever. And you felt, I can see it. Like little kids used to braid each other's hairs and like little pigtails and stuff. So
yeah,
it just seems kind of weird. I think it'd be more fun though if like people come busting out of the woods where they've been maybe, sort of captured by Bigfoot with their hair all braided up and say, you'll never believe what happened. I was taken by Bigfoot and come out and your hair's all braided up. That'd be kind of weird, right? Okay, so here's the fifth one. And this one is a particularly strange story that falls perfectly in the category of Bigfoot weirdness. And it reached Nick's attention evidently in 2007, right? Where these married couple, Donnie and Lynn, they lived on the outskirts of Oklahoma City. And it happened in the Owacha, how do you say it? Ochita?
Yeah, I wanted to say, no, I can't even get it right.
Yeah. Ochita or Owacha or whatever national forest in Oklahoma.
Ochita.
Right? Ochita, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think.
And it was around dusk, and the husband and wife were strolling along the winding paths of the tree-shrouded Ochita National Recreation Trail when Donnie suddenly was gripped by an overwhelming sense that they were not alone and that every move was being watched and scrutinized, right? Donnie's sixth sense, right, one that we have all displayed from time to time, was right on target. In seconds, a massive hair-covered figure emerged from the woods. At a distance is about 20. So anyway, so here's the thing. Seeing this thing at close quarters caused Lynn to fall to the ground. Her legs gave out. Donnie could only stare because he was scared. And it says, for a moment, the Bigfoot merely stared at them, and then something totally unforeseen occurred. Bigfoot spoke to the shocked couple. Not literally, but in a fashion they can only describe as telepathy. I cannot talk. Telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
Telepathy. So if Bigfoot can communicate telepathically or in the mind, and Bigfoot using a soft, soothing voice and female voices, do not be afraid. You will not be harmed. Do not come close. Now, if Bigfoot can use infrasound to basically, as a sort of a self-defense or even an offensive type thing, to stun you, whether it's physically or mentally,
yeah,
who's to say that they couldn't do the same thing telepathically?
I don't know. I have a hard time thinking or...
See, now every time I hear this, I think of Mysterious Universe whenever they talk about it. They're not coming close. Yeah.
I have a hard time posturizing that Bigfoot is so advanced to be capable of these things. I'm still in the camp that Bigfoot is a less evolved creature that does not have some of these supernatural tendencies like talking or mind speak or telepathy. I have a really hard time with that. Now, can you get a vibe like, oh my God, I should be away from this thing, or be still, or be calm? Sure, I get that vibe around an elk or something big.
Yeah,
but not Bigfoot.
I don't know. It is definitely a weird thing. And this article that we read was called 5 Very Strange Things About Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. And some of those I've heard, and some of those I haven't. Like the horse braiding thing we heard, trading gifts, I think it would have been pretty cool to put in there, but then that would have been 6 very strange things about Bigfoot. But, I thought it was pretty interesting. So, yeah. But I don't know about the telepathy thing. Infrasound I can almost believe, because Tibetan monks can do some of that.
Yeah, and so can certain...
yeah, and just because it's below your hearing threshold doesn't mean that you can't create that sound. Snapping shrimp can do that.
Well, I think we did see something on TV on one of the Bigfoot shows where they showed examples, like certain apex predators, like tigers and things like that. They're capable of it.
Yeah.
But it's in addition to, like, their roar or their growl.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it now that I better understand what people are saying Bigfoot. Not that he's, like, walking around emitting this constant.
No, I think it has to be sort of an on-demand thing, and it has to be done right.
Yeah.
I don't think they just walk around just vibrating or oscillating at a certain frequency that just causes and stuns everything,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe when they go into an area or whatever, they think that they might feel threatened. Maybe they, do a little rumble, and maybe that's what causes everybody to be quiet in the woods, like all the crickets and bugs and birds and squirrels and stuff. I don't know. But anyway, I think at this point we're done.
Yes.
That's all we're going to talk about in this particular episode number 221, which was UFO report release. Much ado about nothing is that. It's not Tuna and Bigfoot. And we also threw in some Pennsylvania gold. So there you go.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, again, you can give us a call and leave a message, 575-208-4025. If you don't want to call, send us an email, contact@creepgeeks.com, or find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, CreepGeeks Podcast Facebook group. We have a Facebook page, CreepGeeks. It's real easy to find us all over social media. We also have a TikTok and Instagram or Twitter. Find us all over. We're approachable. We want to hear from you. Thanks again to all our new listeners. And if you'd like to support us, check us out on Patreon. Links are in the show notes for everything we talk about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there you go. That was episode number 221 of the CreepGeeks Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns? Let us know. Anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.